Hello and welcome to another episode of My Retro Watches, and my name is Mike. This video is all about the assembly of the Seiko 7S26 movement. I'm going to be doing this in two parts actually. The first part is the motion side, the part that does all the main work. The second part of the video will be the calendar works, the fitting of the dial and the setting of the hands and setting of the date and day to change at 12. Hopefully you watched the disassembly video of this movement, and you would have, if you have, you remember that this particular movement was absolutely saturated in oil. It was that excessive that even when I opened the barrel for them to service the mainspring, it was awful in there, probably one of the worst I've ever seen. So I'll just cut to a still photograph of that and you can see what it looks like inside. As you can see, it is absolutely awful. Fortunately, I've cleaned all that and reassembled. I wasn't going to do that on film because I've already done a video which you can check out if you want to, on how to service a mainspring by hand if you haven't got the right tools. So before I strip down the table here and get set up for the assembly video itself, I'd just like to say that what you can see is these are the tools we're going to use. We're going to use some tweezers, some screwdrivers, a bit of pegwood, an oiler. I've got two different types of oil there. We'll probably use some Rodico as well. I've got my microscope set up, so I'll try and show you some of the techniques or some of the places to oil through the microscope. If you're new to this game and you want to have a go, please check out the link. I'll leave a card above that you'll be able to see now, or a link below as well to my website. I've got a tool page there, and on the tool page it's just Amazon links to tools that I think are worthy of buying. If you're starting out the first time, or if you're a bit more advanced, it certainly helps you out to see what needs to be bought pretty easy. I do get a little bit of a kickback for that, and you know, anyone that wants to buy anything would be greatly appreciated. So with that all out of the way, let's clear the table and let's get down to the building itself, which is what you all want to see. Okay, so here we are on the bench, and we've got the main plate in front of us. And for the Seiko 7S26, the keyless works are installed from the motion side rather than the calendar side. So this is a new one for me, and that's the one we want to fit first. It's only a few components. The first two are probably what I would consider one of the most fiddliest possibly of the whole movement. We need to take the stem and the crown, and we need to gently put them into position, and then pull the crown back a little, the stem back a little, sorry. And I have to offer up the little star gear. Which is not easy, as I'm trying to use my naked eye for this. There. Hopefully you caught that. And then we need to do the same with the clutch, making sure that the gear side, let me just offer that up to you. So the side with all the teeth, which is the back side there, also need to do the same thing. Like so. Okay. They are not easy to do that. I've actually done a few practice ones already, and it didn't go too well. So there we are. They are now in position, and we can move on to the next component. Okay, we're under the microscope now because we need to do the first oiling point. The next component to fit is the set-in lever, and it rests on this tiny little post here, and as it has some movement in there, that will cause some friction. So we just need to put a little drop of oil, and I'm using Mobius D5 for this. Just a little tiny amount like that. Okay, it's now time to fit the setting lever, which is this one here, and it fits on that post that we just oiled, like so. Quite straightforward. And then the next component is the yoke. And the yoke looks like this, and it sits, that hole sits on there. It'll then rest into the clutch, and we need to just apply a little bit of pressure into the spring there and make sure. Let me just try and zoom in for you. So you need to see that this is engaged here into the V, and then we need to oil on top of here and just in there a little bit. Okay, this is the setting lever that you're looking at now, and we need to just oil the top piece. I'm using a Bergen black oiler here. This is the finest one. I just want to get some just into that end there. Like so. Okay, now we need to put on the setting lever spring and screw it all down together. Okay, please note that the yoke was in the wrong position at the last part of the video. It should be sitting centrally there in the clutch wheel, like I show in the picture, and I've circled it red. Sorry if that's caused any confusion. I only noticed it when I was editing the video. There we go. Okay, it's now time to set the setting lever spring, which is this piece here, and the big hole goes over the big post at the far end there, and it all sort of locates in place. Then I need to put 2 screws to retain it. And I've got a bit of slip, which is not ideal at all, but there we are. Always prudent to use the correct screwdriver, or the correct size screwdriver for each screw. I was trying to cheat there and I got a slip, and slips are not desirable if you want to not mark your movement. So, oops. He says as he gets another slip. Right, okay, that's now installed, and we just need to, let me see if I can zoom in again. So we just need to engage this bit here. And then we just check the positions. All 3 positions are working okay. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the keyless works. Now we can get on with the motion side. So the first thing I've got to do now is I just put a tiny little bit of oil onto the jewel here before we fit the center wheel and the center wheel bridge. So again, it's back onto the microscope. The oil I'm going to be using here is Mobius 9010. So okay, we're looking at the center jewel there. And I'll just put a tiny, it's hard for me to see because for me to be in focus, I think it takes you out of focus. Just going to put a drop there. Maybe a drop too much, but a drop there is what you want to do. So with the jewel oiled, we can now place the center wheel in the middle like so, and the center wheel has a bridge that holds it in place, but I like to oil the top just where the bridge touches it, because again it's a friction point. So there's a bit of yo-yoing going on here between the bench and the microscope, but it's back onto the microscope. Okay, we're now looking at the top of the centre wheel, and as I say, I'm just going to put a little drop just there. Okay, now that was oiled, it's time to fit the bridge itself, and that fits over 2 posts. Never force apart, always just let it find its position, like so. That is held in by 1 screw, and the screw goes in the end here. Okay, always good just to give it a little movement, make sure it's not snagging. So centre wheel bridge is now installed, and it's on to the next part, and the next part is going to be the escape wheel. And the escape wheel fits in the jewel. Let me just try and show you that. This little jewel here, with the long side pointing up. Like so. Now with the centre wheel, the escape wheel in position, I like to put the barrel in now, and I tend to just put a tiny bit of Mobius D5 into the hole there. I'm not going to do this one on the microscope, but again, it's just a friction area. I also will I'll bring in the barrel now, and I'll just put a tiny bit also on the side there. Barrel fits in very straightforward, fits straight into the hole. When you turn it, you should see the centre wheel also turn. Okay, pretty straightforward so far. Now we need to put the third wheel in. And the third wheel is this one with the little gear on the bottom. Not playing ball today, is it? There we go. That's just going to slot into there. You know when it's in, it's not sticking up. And then it's the fourth wheel, which is what controls the second hand on the watch, and that is this long one here. And there's 2 things I like to do here. We need to oil the centre wheel itself on the stem, and I personally again like to put a little drop onto the jewel there. Okay, so we're just looking at the jewel for the fourth wheel, and I'm using 9010 Mobius oil, and just want to get a little speck on there. That's a bit too much, but we'll persevere for the time being. Okay, what we can see here is the fourth wheel. This is the staff of the fourth wheel, and you can just see those 2 little bumps in the middle there, and that's where we want to put a bit of oil. Excuse all the dirt around it, that's sort of ingrained onto my base of my microscope, so I can't really clean that off. But we just need a tiny drop. I didn't expect it to move because I don't normally do this under the microscope. It's trying to show you where it goes. So just a little bit there. Hopefully that's come out okay on camera. If it hasn't, you kind of know where it's got to go. Okay, now we need to install the fourth wheel, and it just fits into the hole in the jewel, and it will just gently lower it down. There we are, that's now in place, and then we'll follow that with the click. So the heel of it down this end fits into that hole, and the rest of it just threads through the post. like so. That's the click installed. Now we need to get the train wheel bridge, and I need to install the pull levers, and I need to oil the jewels. However, I'm going to oil the jewels off camera. Okay, they are the little Diafix. They're really difficult. I've recently done a video on Diafix, so if you want to see how to do those, then please watch that video. Once again, I'll leave a link up the top now on a card, and you can click that and watch that if you want to. Okay, now that's oiled, we can bring in the pull lever and put it into position. And then the first reduction wheel has this pin on the bottom of it, and this is where I want a little staking block or something really, but for now I just slide it in, get it with my tweezers and turn it over. And then we need to fit the little circlip on the end, so just try and get this to position a bit better so you can see it. Okay, now it's time to fit the little circlip. I've got it in position already, and we are just going to ease that into position, and I like to use a screwdriver. Nope. There, okay. And now that is on. They can be a little bit pesky at times, but now it's fitted, we're okay. So I'll oil the jewels here, and then we can install the train wheel bridge. Okay, I've oiled the jewels, now it's time to fit the train wheel bridge. So I use this sort of straight edge as a bit of a guide. And then you want to see if all the gears are working. As long as the escape's going around and all the gears move freely, therefore all the pivots are in their respective jewel holes, which I'm happy with there. We've now got 3 screws to put in. Once the screws are in, the train wheel bridge is secure. And I'm going to say it as I say it in all my videos, one screw at a time. I find it better to screw one at a time. It's alright, I'm concentrating. So get one in, don't put them all in the holes and then do one, because if you do have a slip, the chances are the screws are going to go flying across your bench or onto your carpet where you'll never see them again. It's only the pros and people, more experienced people, who might have the confidence to do that, but I'm just trying to save you the pain of losing a screw, because losing a screw is horrible. So we'll just fit that last one there. Okay, now happy with that, I'll test again, just use the pegwood just to move the barrel there, and as long as I can see the escape and it feels like it's moving freely, then I know that everything is installed correctly. So the next thing to put in is going to be the pallet bridge. And then we're almost home and dry actually. So the first thing to do is to oil the pallet. Some people do this in situ. I'm just going to try and do it on the microscope now, to show you a little bit about how you do that. Okay, here we are on the microscope looking at the exit jewel on the pallet, and I just want to try to get just the tiniest amount on the end of that. I'd normally be doing this with an auto oiler, but I'm having difficulty with it at the moment, so I'm trying to do it the old-fashioned method. There's a little bit too much on there, but again, I'm just trying to show you what we're doing here. I'll regulate the watch later on, and if I can see any anomalies, of course I'll correct them. I'm going to install the pallet, and again I'll do that on the microscope because it's a little bit easier. And we're just going to drop it down, and then once you think it's in the jewel, which it is now, we're good to put the bridge on, of which I'll do back on the bench. Okay, I just want to install the bridge now, and you have to be a little bit careful with the bridge not to try and disturb the pallet fork too much. You know when it's on if you don't get any movement when you're touching the two sides here, and you can inspect the jewel to see that it's in position, but I can tell from the feel there that it's in. And then we need to install the two screws. Okay, not upside down, it's not going to work that way, is it? There we go. Screws back in position. Okay, the pallet and the pallet bridge are now installed. So we just want to put the ratchet wheel on the top here, and then we can put some power into the mainspring and test that the pallet is working correctly. The next thing to do is to just put a little bit of D5 again on here. The ratchet wheel does a lot of work, and I always think it needs a bit of oil. And here's the ratchet wheel. You might think the hole inside it is round, but it's not. It's got a little flat side, and that's for location, and you'll know when it's on because it fits properly. There we are. And then we're just going to put the screw back in on the top. And then the screw tries to wind the mainspring, but you just want to hold a tiny little bit of tension on that just to nip the screw up a bit. I know my fingers are in the way. And then we can put a few winds like so, and to test the fork is in the right position. Let me see if I can zoom in. I think you lose a bit of clarity here, don't you? It should just move from side to side with a minimum amount of touch. Hopefully you can see that. Let's try it with the oiler. I'm trying to do this with my naked eye, which is crazy. Yeah. So if you get nice, fast, positive movement from side to side, then you know that it's installed correctly. So the last thing to put in now is the balance itself. Okay, to install the balance, so this is some people's Achilles heel. They find it quite difficult, and of course it's the most fragile part, or one of the most fragile parts of the watch, certainly the hairspring. But there is a little bit of a technique. It's quite hard to show you on camera, so I'll try and talk your way through it. But you want to be looking this way with your eye lower down, not looking above, but try and look from the side and get it in good light, because the pivot hole or the jewel hole is right by the fork. And what to try and do is you want to look at the bottom of the balance wheel, because you will be able to see the pivot. And if your eyesight's just in, like mine there, I now know that the jewels or the pivots are in the right jewels, and all I've got to do is get the bridge to sit on as it should. And then there we go. So I've done it on its first attempt, and that tends to work for me every time now. I did have a lot of trouble myself when I first started out, certainly with the 7 Series, because the balance wheel is a lot smaller. and just the way it's configured really. But if you look at it from that angle and you try and look at the bottom pivot on the balance wheel, you will line it up into that hole quite easily. So all we need to do now is to put the screw in. I'll probably have more trouble trying to put the screw in now than I will putting the balance in. With a lot of slip. I don't want slip, this is not my watch. Okay, there we are. So in theory, that is the motion side done. Okay, we've got to fit the second intermediate wheel here, but I'm going to do that when I come to put all the put the rotor back on and test for everything to be working. But for the time being, I'm happy because I can see the balance moving. So I think I'll finish the video with putting this onto the timographer now and seeing where we are after we've cleaned everything. So before we do the calendar works, this is another practice I do quite often, because if you put it on the timographer now and you start seeing problems or the reading isn't quite right, you can work on it. You haven't got to disassemble all the calendar works again, take all the hands off and everything. You know, you test it now. Maybe you don't need to regulate it, but if you're going to get two nice parallel lines and a good amplitude, you know that you're on the road to success with it. The key thing as well is to put a really good wind into the mainspring. There's no point in testing it on the timographer with a very low power because that would give it a false reading. So I'll set the camera up now so you can see the timographer and we'll see what we get. Here we are all set up now. You can see the timograph, and I honestly haven't put the movement on yet, so let's see what happens. I tend to test it still in the holder for now. Here we go. Already I'm quite happy. Just wait for, oh, there's the amplitude as well. So we've got some good amp going on there. 253 is pretty powerful for this movement. What you can see is this is the beat error. So this is the error between the tick and the tock, which is in milliseconds. That can be adjusted by just tapping the stud a little bit. And at the moment we're running slightly slow at minus 54 seconds per day. But the key thing to be looking at right now is the straight lines. So am I seeing good, consistent straight lines? The answer is yes. If you watch the disassembly video, the very first thing I did was put this movement on the timographer, and it was full of oil. We couldn't even get a reading from memory. It was all over the place. So we've rectified all of that, and in my view now this is running really, really sweet. So clearly we've got the oiling right, and the mainspring has been serviced, of course, so that's producing good power. So overall I'm very, very happy with those results. Once I've done the calendar side in the second video, I will regulate the whole thing so that it's running absolutely as sweet as I can get it, and of course I'll film that part as well. So let's end the video here. Thank you very much for watching if you've got this far. Really do appreciate it. I appreciate all your comments and you guys subscribing. So give me a thumbs up if you liked it. Subscribe, hit the bell button. They will see the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Catch you in the next one.